On 8:35 a.m. as we continue with this morning's edition of News and Views. We are now talking about South African nationals that are fighting in a foreign genocide. Now, this comes against the background of Ukraine, where the South African government has received a distress call from a group. 16 of the men are from KwaZulu-Natal and one are from the Eastern Cape. Young people who are apparently lured to join mercenary forces involved in the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, we know the bone of contention has been South Africans serving in the IDF and attorney Ziyaad Patel. Many a docket has been prepared, many a report has been produced. And just to put this into context, from Ukraine involvement to questionable IDF service, Ziyaad Patel, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Juma Mubarak to you and welcome.
Walaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran, Brother Inayat, for having me on your show. Indeed, this is a serious concern for South Africa, and I think the government of South Africa needs to start taking the respective measures in order to ensure that its citizens that go to serve, whether it be in the IDF or whether it be for any foreign army, in rendering foreign military assistance, must comply with the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act. And also, it's very clear that our law says that mercenary activity is completely prohibited. Mercenary activities, for instance, is defined, if I may go to it, in the Foreign Military Assistance Act as meaning direct participation as a combatant in armed conflict for private gain. And the law is very, very clear when it comes to mercenary activities in the instance of these individuals that have now been found stranded in the Donbass region and requesting the assistance of the South African government. Section 2 of the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance says, no person may within the Republic or elsewhere recruit, use, or train persons for or finance or engage in mercenary activity. So, this is a complete and strict prohibition. And we know that from the numerous voluminous complaints that we have prepared and the reports of that we've attained in terms of filing our necessary affidavits, and I have been discussing that there is a court application in process. We have a record where it's been indicated that no person has made any application in terms of the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act to the National Conventional Arms Control Committee. Insofar as it relates to IDF recruitment, it also relates to any other applications being made. So we're seeing that there's a culture of utter impunity where the laws of this country is being violated. And these violations emanate in serious, egregious crimes being perpetrated, whether it be in the territories of Palestine or whether it be in Ukraine, for instance. If there's going to be sort of war crimes, alleged war crimes being committed or perpetrated, or even crimes of genocide, that means that we need to invoke, for instance, the Genocide Convention. We need to invoke South Africa's ratification of the Rome Statute, whereby we've implemented the International Criminal Court Act. And very importantly, one of the other acts that works very coherently with the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act is the protection of constitutional democracy against terrorism and related activities. So these individuals are also then implicated in terms of terrorism and terror-related, activities in what they are doing, and it's an utter violation of South African law. And this situation has to change. The fact that these individuals have now requested the South African government and our president to intervene and have them, safely come back to our country. I believe that President Ramaphosa has now requested for an investigation into how these individuals in the first place have been recruited. So there's a lot to speak about this issue, because it's not only about the individuals that go to serve unlawfully, but it's the entire recruitment framework within which this is done, the aiding, the abetting, the facilitating, procuring of these individuals, whether it be as mercenaries for personal financial gain, or whether it be to render foreign military assistance foreign military assistance in terms of for the IDF. And we know that the Zionists do this in a way where there's a proper recruitment structure going on. There are Zionist institutions that are complicit in terrorism and related activities. whereby there's a recruitment, where this recruitment happens, and then they are subsequently aided and abetted when they come back to the country. So to give context to your viewers, when you talk about the IDF, for instance, what happens is the facilitation of the recruitment happens. These individuals say that they're making aliyah, they're going to the state of Israel, and generally it's young, impressionable Jewish youth that go and do this. I've been looking at the ages of these Ukrainian mercenaries, also young people, or in their early 20s or towards their early 30s, that get recruited. There's a more of a personal financial gain. When it comes to young, impressionable Jewish youth, they are promised to study at the universities in Israel. They are promised tuition fees as well as accommodation. So those are the motivations. But in order to do that, they must first go and render assistance for the IDF. And we all know the IDF is committing genocide.
Yes. Also, Ziyaad, I think what is important, and you alluded to this in terms of President Ramaphosa ordering an investigation into the circumstances that led to the recruitment of these young people. But once again, this raises a question because for a very, very long time, and we can go back many years, well over 10, 15 years, dockets were produced for those that were serving in the IDF. And again, now we have the president, and it's not that the government or the NPA is not aware of South Africans that have been serving abroad, but there is a difference now that there is this cry of help or cry for help that has come out of the Ukraine. The government has set up. They've taken notice. They're talking about diplomatic channels. They talk about ordering an investigation. Yet, this has been a problem for a very, very long time. And I think this is the question that many are raising. What is the difference between those that are serving in Ukraine and those that are serving and committing genocide in Palestine?
You know, I mean, as a legal person and involved in law for quite a long time, we always have been saying that the law must be applied of general application. It must be applied equally, unbiasedly, without prejudice, without fear, and without favor. And this, unfortunately, is not the situation when it comes to our South African authorities. It seems like the Zionists that go to serve in the IDF have a blanket cover of protection, and this protection is in the form of the lack of political will to do anything constructively. Whereas we've seen it applied in a very different manner if it was, for instance, so-called Muslim people that may be implicated. The fact that government is intervening with these individuals in Ukraine, this needs to be interrogated as to what kind of assistance will the South African government offer. Prima facie, it shows that these individuals have not applied for the necessary permission or authorization to go and serve. I've just mentioned that the Foreign Military Assistance Act is quite explicit. Foreign mercenary activities is completely prohibited. Unlike rendering foreign military assistance in terms of the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act, where you want to render for a foreign army, you have the opportunity to apply in terms of Section 4, which says authorization for rendering of foreign military assistance, or you can ask for a granting of approval in terms of Section 5. And these applications are made to the National Conventional Arms Control Committee. The National Conventional Arms Control Committee, in consultation with the Minister of Defense, will consider recommendations, and the Minister of Defense will give a decision on whether such permission is allowed or prohibited. Now, that comes to rendering of foreign military assistance. And we know when it comes to the Zionists, we know this because applications were made for a request since 2006, since the initial IDF war in Lebanon. And from 2006 to 2023, the National Conventional Arms Committee indicated that no applications whatsoever were made. Neither were any quarterly reports submitted to Parliament about any applications that were authorized or granted. So there was flagrant violation where South Africans exercising dual citizenship or wanting to make aliyah go to the state of Israel, go to Israel and then commit these crimes. For their intents and purposes, they may be revoking their residency, but they're still retaining the South African citizenship. And what happens in most of these instances, which I'm going to be exposing very soon, as a High Court application is already underway, and we are in the process of releasing very shortly, inshallah, a very comprehensive executive summary of the entire case made against the South African government for its complicity and failures to act in utilizing the law without fear, without favor, and without prejudice, which goes to your question, Inayat, is that how will the South African government cooperate with, bringing back these South African citizens who have committed crimes in Ukraine, who have violated the laws of this country, went to Ukraine. There has to be an investigation into which military units they were part of, what activities have these military units conducted, were they civilian casualties, are they implicated in war crimes, and they need to be charged. They need to be charged in terms of the laws of the Republic. And if it's found that they've perpetrated war crimes where there's been indiscriminate bombing or disproportionate use of force, and it falls within the categories of war crimes, then they well can be investigated and prosecuted in terms of South Africa's implementation of the International Criminal Court Act, as well as protection of constitutional democracy against terrorism in terms of our anti-terrorism laws. So we as advocates want to see that the law is applied equally without fear, favor, or prejudice. And unfortunately, we're not seeing it when it comes to the issue of Palestine. It seems like the Zionists continue to have this blanket protection by the South African government. And this is what I've spoken about in the past. It's a serious disconnect. I was recently invited to speak in Tehran at an international conference, and I focused very strongly about this disconnect between the South African, approach internationally at the International Court of Justice. We also made the formal and initiated the referral at the International Criminal Court. And yet, to date, from the Gaza docket 2008, 2009 to now, we don't see one single prosecution. No, there's no indication also that any of these individuals that we have provided to the authorities were even questioned or interrogated. And that's how serious and how bad the situation is. And I think that this is where we are going to now try and force the hand of our authorities by a High Court application. And this application, I would like to have a show with you on this specifically, where we ask for the relief in terms of certain decisions that need to be made, as well as a national security strategy framework, because all these individuals are highly trained. In fact, I believe they're even better trained than our own SANDF soldiers, and they become a serious national security threat to our own sovereignty and to our own territory.
Yes, Ziyaad. In fact, I know you're going to rush to court, but Ziyaad, just finally, I think also, what you're saying is very, very clear. It is blatant. It is open that these people, by going to Ukraine, have broken the law. And again, looking at how the government has basically watered this down, where the presidential spokesperson speaks about, and I'd like to paraphrase what he's saying, that the president and the South African government strongly condemn the exploitation of young and vulnerable people working with foreign military entities. And here they're talking about exploitation of people. And yet, it is blatant. And this is obviously how the government is, hypocritical in a sense that you've got your own citizens that have broken a law, and at the same time, you're offering them some sort of protection and saying they've been exploited.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there is the opportunity for South Africans and young South Africans to study at various institutions or to have employment in terms of work and work business and earning income. The fact that these people have been financially motivated, especially when it comes to mercenary activities, they are financially motivated, and the category of people that enter mercenary activities are highly trained paramilitary individuals or trained in a specific area of explosives or whatever that they may be quite good at, and they get recruited. by these governments, by these national armies that are fighting wars or where wars are being waged. And they are motivated by financial gain. So I don't believe that they should be protected in any way. They need to face the full might of the law. In it, what's also important is that, there has to be this distinction that is made. And I spoke extensively about this in Tehran as well, is about the right to armed struggle for peoples that are struggling under colonialism, apartheid, and are seeking the right for self-determination. Like South Africa, where armed struggle was enshrined in international law, it's an enshrined right in international law when a people are seeking the right to self-determination. They may use any means whatsoever necessary in order to attain those rights of self-determination. And it includes the right to armed struggle. Now, what we've seen with the imperialist hegemony forces and colonial, secular colonial forces of Israel and so forth, is that they've tried to criminalize armed struggle and legitimize illegitimate foreign military assistance and mercenary activities. And this is actually toppling international law and creating an extremely dangerous situation, which we are actually witnessing in real time, because there's a genocide happening. Insofar as even there's a so-called ceasefire put in place, we still hear about Palestinians being killed every day, gross violations by Israel. And I've said this, that Israel was never held accountable. The IDF, its actors, agents, principals, and representatives were never held accountable from the first war in 2008, 2009. And continuing from that period to date, there've been continuous airstrikes, there's been continuous wars in between 2012, 2014. There's an individual that we have spotlighted, and that the court application relates to, is a decision on a South African individual who had served in the IDF in 2014, and to date has not been held accountable. A decision still lays with the National Director of Public Prosecutions for almost 5 years after we received a successful decision in 2019 in terms of a review to overturn a decision not to prosecute. Can you believe this? For 5 years, the National Director of Public Prosecutions is sitting with to make a decision of a Zionist in the 2014 war, and in the midst of a real live genocide happening. And this is the seriousness of the situation. So, we've got to inform our viewers that, while South Africa is lauded, especially internationally, for what it's undertaken, it's complete and utter hypocrisy. And we need the situation to change. So the only other way that we can do this as peace-loving human beings and as committed civilian citizens wanting to uphold the Constitution of the Republic is to go to court and ask for court intervention. And we're hoping that this court intervention will assist not only in the issue on Palestine, but it should assist in the issue of Ukraine. It should assist in the issue of Sudan. We don't want any of those perpetrators of the RSF fighters coming to South Africa. Neither do we want any mercenaries being recruited to go and commit the horrendous crimes that we're actually witnessing in Al-Fashir in Sudan, or where they be in Kashmir. And we need to stand on the right side of history, on the right side of law, as good, conscionable human beings, to say that this is the laws of the Republic. We are demanding of our country and our president that the laws be upheld, that the organs of state uphold the laws of this country, to ensure that no South African national citizen who is expected to benefit from the constitutional democracy and liberties and civil liberties in this country must go and commit these kind of atrocities and create destabilization in other regions. And also in the same breath, we are also wanting to make very clear, we don't want the Mavi Marmara commanders, where we got a decision many years ago, to ever come to the territory of the Republic, where they've committed violations of human rights, where they've committed war crimes. And neither do we want IDF soldiers, which is a proven fact in Ziyaad. Because last year when I was in Cape Town, there was an individual by the name of Uri Sheikh Haddad, who was geolocated and identified to be part of an IDF unit serving in the real-time present war in Gaza, committing and perpetrating genocide, where the South African government went to the ICC, made a formal referral. Subsequent to that, provided a memorial report of over 200 pages of war crimes that the Israelis are accused of, and then goes to the ICJ and asks for provisional measures to stop the genocide. I speak to to a senior commander in the Western Cape to say we have credible information that there's an individual by the name of Urishe Haddad that is here in South Africa. He was in Gaza. He is in his IDF uniform, and that people have identified him in a specific unit, and this is what he has done in Gaza, and he's now in Cape Town and he's enjoying civil liberties and having a holiday. And the response that we received back is, Mr. Patel, there's no indication that he has committed any crime in South Africa. And that is the situation of indifference that we need to be very cautious about. And we need to start acting out to say that we don't want these individuals in our organs of state, in our police services, that are going to fail to uphold the rule of law in this country.
Well, Ziyaad, I know you've got to rush to court, but looking forward to your executive summary and your report as well. And definitely, yes, we will hold you to an interview, inshallah. And I'm sure it's going to be quite an in-depth one. So we are looking forward to that. But as always, Ziyaad, Jazakallah, we do appreciate you taking time out for us right here on Salam Media. Have a great Jummah as well, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Attorney Ziyaad Patel with us this morning against South Africans fighting in a foreign genocide. And once again, one sees a hypocrisy, again, very, very blatant, very, very clear with regard to those that have been lured into fighting in Ukraine versus what is taking place with the South Africans that are serving in the IDF. But looking forward to Ziyaad Patel and the executive summary, inshallah. At some point in time, we will be having a detailed discussion once again on the subject. We're going to go for a break. We'll be back.